Good day. Welcome to Unit 10, Claims of Fact, Value, and Policy. Our learning competency in this unit is that you will be able to identify claims explicitly or implicitly made in a written text. In order for you to produce a good piece of writing, it is crucial to know where you stand on your topic. While this may seem obvious, too often, students write argumentative essays or persuasive essays that waffle back and forth and end up arguing nothing in particular. So first, you should realize that it is an argumentative essay and it intends to persuade readers to your point of view. So now we are in Lesson 3, Claim of Policy. In the previous discussions, you have learned about the claims of fact and claims of value. The claims of fact, that is, that a certain condition exists or relies on the factual information for support, while the claims of value makes a judgment that they express approval or disapproval. Well, in this lesson, in the claims of policy, you should be able to write and defend claims of policy. This is the question that we will be answering as we go along with our discussion. How can claims of policy strengthen an argument? Say for example, you were asked to state what changes you would make to the school's rules and regulations if you were the student council president. In expressing yourself, you may use claims of policy. This is the type of claim that we are going to focus on today's lesson. Claims of policy. It argues that certain conditions should exist. As the name suggests, they advocate adoption of policies or courses of action because problems have arisen that call for solution. The words should, ought to, or must are almost always expressed or implied in the claim. It aims to convince readers that the proposed solution would indeed solve the given problem and that it is better than the current or any other proposed course of action. So as with value claims, claims of policy often require you to build upon fact and value claims. You may need to establish with a claim of fact that there is a problem needing a solution, for instance, and then use a claim of value to argue the rightness of solving the problem. Here are the guidelines in defending your claim of policy. So first, you need to state your proposal clearly. If you want to argue that a certain policy or other solution is not effective, state your proposal in contrast with that policy or solution. Next is you need to state your arguments for your proposed solution. So you need to express why it is the best action to take. And lastly is support your claim with enough evidence. So you learned in the previous discussion on how to give evidences. So this evidence should show that the solution is going to be a success and that it is attainable, of course. So remember, when you state your claims of policy, these questions need to be answered. So first, what should we do? How should we act? What should future policy be? And how can we solve this problem? And what concrete course of action should we pursue to solve the problem? So remember, claims of policy tend to focus on the future. Here are the list of vocabulary words that we will encounter in the text that we will be reading. The first word is hike. It is a noun and it means an increase in amount or quantity. For example, the recent fare price hike is going to affect the budgets of those who commute regularly. The second word is bill. It is also a noun and it is a law presented and discussed before enactment in legislative branches. Say for example, the proposed bill of their representative is beneficial for everyone. The third word is duly. It is an adverb, and it means properly. Example, they still wait for the day that this administration will duly serve the nation. The last word is cascade. It is a verb, and it means to affect someone or something greatly, or to affect several things in successions. Example, their love for the country cascades to the commoners as well as to those who are detached from the realities of most Filipinos. Now let's read this sample text here. The salary increase for public school teachers. It is not unknown to many people that public school teachers fund their jobs since the government does not provide enough funds for them. They use their own money to repaint their classrooms. They get from their own pockets the fees for classroom materials and sometimes food for some students who could barely eat twice a day. They spend thousands of pesos to fund their graduate studies and seminars. They are also given tasks that are beyond teaching. Yet, they do all this in the hope of making their students learn the skills that they try so hard to impart to them. Knowing all this, the government should raise the salary of our public school teachers. During the campaign period, the President promised a pay hike for teachers. Yet, years later, it has not been fulfilled. Even lawmakers have been passing bills on salary increase among government workers, but not one is implemented. They keep on saying that there are not enough funds for the hike and a reallocation of budget needs to be done in order to fulfill it. However, in a 2018 report, the Commission on Audit states that there is an unexplained 13 billion pesos worth of expenses by the Department of Education. Aside from that, error-filled textbooks and other unnecessary expenses keep on slashing the education funds when in fact, this mismanaged large sum of money could have been used for the teacher's salary increase. Spending on teachers will be worth it. They make the best out of the limited resources that they have, so imagine if they are fully funded while their personal and professional needs are duly augmented. The quality of education will become better. Modern technology can and will be used in classrooms as expected. Teachers and schools could provide more up-to-date, accurate, and more appropriate learning materials for learners. The government must increase the salary of public school teachers. It is beneficial to all stakeholders such as students, parents, and the community. Augmenting the salary of teachers for the betterment of their lives cascades to those who directly benefit from them, the Filipino learners. It cannot be stressed enough how teachers, like any other professionals, are vital in building a strong society. Questions about the text. First, what is the text about? Second, what value can the audience get from the text? Third, is the proposal statement effective? Why or why not? Fourth, how did the writer use claims of policy in the text? The fifth one is, what features of writing with claims of policy are present in the text? The sample text proposes a salary increase for public school teachers. The writer states the proposal at the end of the introductory paragraph by saying, knowing all this, the government should raise the salary of our public school teachers. Then support and evidence are provided throughout the essay. The writer mentions DepEd's unexplained expenses from 2018 as well as the continuous funding for the reproduction of error-filled text. She claims that these mismanaged large sums of money could have been used for the teacher's salary increase. She also discusses the benefits of the government and other stakeholders, such as students, parents, and community. The cited evidence and justification for the salary increase show that proposal is attainable and would benefit not just the teachers, but the nation as a whole. To answer our essential question from the start of our discussion on how can claims of policy strengthen an argument, it can strengthen an argument because it provides a clear solution to an existing problem, and it is also the use of evidences and justification proving that the proposed solution is attainable and better than other solutions. Let's move to Lesson 4, Identifying Claims Explicitly and Implicitly Made in a Written Text. When a reader understands the message of a written piece, be it written explicitly or implicitly, the reading experience becomes more engaging and effective. Through seeing the important details, one can determine the purpose of the author and the message that he or she tries to convey. In this lesson, you will learn about identifying claims in a text. Our objectives in this lesson are to distinguish claims of fact, value, and policy in a written text, and write and defend claims of fact, value, and policy. Here is an essential question that needs to be answered as we go through on our discussion. How can one analyze a piece of text in order to locate a claim? Let's have a warm-up. Here are two sentences, and I ask you which one would you prefer. The first sentence is, "Don't forget to drink your water and sleep early at night." The second sentence is, "I care for you." Sometimes, people direct or indirectly say what you are to them, especially in boyfriend and girlfriend relationships. Your partner may directly say, "I care for you." And other times, he or she will say things that make you feel that you are cared of. That is what we mean by implicit and explicit information. Explicit information is the information that is clearly stated in a text or in a sentence, while the implicit information is implied and indirect. On the given example in the previous slide, both sentences mean "I care for you." The only difference is that the information in the first sentence is implied, while in the second sentence it is clearly stated. In the previous discussions, we have learned about the claims of fact, claims of value, and the claims of policy. But what is the importance of identifying claims? First, it is important in critical reading. It makes one do a deeper examination of the ideas presented in the text. And lastly, it helps the readers understand the writer's purpose and follow his or her arguments with ease. Claims. It is often explicitly or directly stated. It is explained and justified using evidence. Sometimes, it is also implicitly stated. It is only implied in a text and often made in a narrative or descriptive text. That is why in writing a persuasive text, we need to convince our reader at any cost. Each claim that we write needs to be accepted as both relevant and true to create an effective argument. That is to prove that our conclusion is true. Relevant. Does it make any sense? And true. Does it base on facts? An argument built of all claims that are accepted as relevant and true is a sound argument. while an argument with a claim that is not accepted as true is deemed unsound argument, and it is no longer proves that the conclusion is true. Let's look at these examples. All cats are mammals. Bubble is a cat. Bubble is a mammal. So when figuring out if any argument is sound, first ask yourself if the argument makes sense. Since this is arguing true statements, and the argument is valid because all cats are indeed mammals, so this argument is a sound argument. Now let's look at the second example. All crocodiles are mammals. Lolong is a crocodile. Therefore, Lolong is a mammal. So this argument is unsound because in the premise 1 isn't true, because all crocodiles are not mammals, they are reptiles. Since one premise isn't true, the whole argument is thrown off and it is now invalid. Here are the vocabulary words that can be found in the text that we will be reading. The first word is anticipated, and it is a verb. It means expected to happen. Example, the band's visit to the country and upcoming concert are anticipated by many fans. The second one is apprehension. It is a noun, and it means a sense or fear that something bad is going to happen. Example, an atmosphere of apprehension fills the room. The third word is coarse. It is an adjective, and it means common or ordinary. Say for example, the kids' faces are coarse according to the standards of the talent scout. The fourth word is isolation, and it is a noun. It is the condition of being separated or secluded. Example, the infected patients are in isolation right now to prevent others from contracting their disease. The last word is vanity, and it is a noun. It means conceited pride in oneself or in one's own appearance. Example, he did all that for sheer vanity and not because he truly cares for the victims. Here is our reading text. It is an excerpt from News USA, and it is entitled The Pet Boost. Fur Friends Help Seniors Feel Less Lonely. You can find a copy of this text from your Clipper. Here are the guide questions as you read the text. First question is, what are the text about? The second is, what value can the audience get from the text? The third question is, what are the explicit claims found in both texts? And how did you know that they are explicit claims? The fourth one is, what are the implicit claims found in both texts? And how did you know that they are implicit claims? The fifth question is, how did the writer's use of explicit and implicit claims affect the presentation of the written pieces? The sample text explicitly tells readers that senior citizens are more likely to become less lonely if they are accompanied by pets. Aside from that, the writer tells the readers that owning a pet is being around pets in old age could help in boosting the senior's health. The text utilizes claims of facts such as its thesis statement, which is many older adults experience feelings and loneliness and isolation as they age, but pets can provide the companionship and love seniors desire. Then, it is followed by statistical facts such as, in fact, 86% of pet owners agree they would be lonelier and less happy without their pet, and 58% agree that they could not be as physically healthy without their pet. And according to the survey, 82% of older adults say they will not consider moving to a senior living community without their pet. So the message of the report is clear. For older people, being around pets has benefits and helps them deal with feelings of loneliness and isolation. And that's it. That concludes our Unit 10, Claims of Fact, Value, and Policy. See you on our next discussions.